So here we are talking about Key Vault, Azure Key Vault. I think many of you will be able to relate to me when I tell you that I really don't like giving permissions to users. Does that make sense? I really don't like to use the old user ID and password. It seems a bit antiquated and it is not very secure. Do I really want somebody to be able to shoulder surf, basically look over my shoulder, and find out what I'm entering as my password? Is that really sufficient from the perspective of security? Right? It isn't. It has not been for quite some time. And this lends itself to a whole lot of problem. What I mean by that is this password entry thing, providing user ID and password. So then the topic comes up of multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, correct? Isn't that what you think of immediately? Well, if I'm designing applications and services that many users utilize, do I really want to bother the users by constantly asking them to authenticate themselves as I move around the various different services and the various different applications? I know what you're going to say. You're going to think to yourself, security goes one way and convenience goes the other way. Isn't that true? The more secure you want to be, the less convenient things will be. They go in opposite directions. So if you want to keep things secure, you will have to, if you want to keep things secure, you'll have to give up convenience. Like the whole plus and minus. Isn't that true? But there is a middle ground, and a very good middle ground, that's workable, secure, and is proven. And that's where Key Vault comes into the picture. If I have my applications, I have perhaps my virtual machines, I have some services, whatever they may be, and then I have got some certificates. From a security perspective, I've got some secrets from the perspective of perhaps encryption, and I've got some other keys. I want to ideally connect these together. Isn't that the case? But do I really want to remember secrets and keys and associated with which VM and which applications and which services? That gets to be a bit of a mess, as you can see. Isn't that the case? Well, we can get rid of all that. And what I mean by that is we can get rid of this gobbledygook, for lack of a better word, and introduce Key Vault into the equation. So I can put Key Vaults right here, and I can connect the certificates, keys, and secrets store inside the Key Vault and allow it to access and be given to apps and VMs and services on an as-needed basis. This way, the users have no idea what the keys are. Key Vault keeps track of that stuff, simplifying things greatly. Purpose of Key Vault is right here. It is safeguarding cryptographic keys and other secrets that are used by cloud applications and services. So here's an example. I've got a Azure Kubernetes cluster that is communicating with a managed identity, which is communicating with the Key Vault, Azure Active Directory, which is communicating with managed identity, and SQL database at the very end. And because it's Key Vault related, managed identity related, secrets are kept. Any Azure supported managed identity can gain access to that key and those keys, for example. So how does it work? Well, an admin with an Azure subscription creates and manages these Vault keys, Vault and the keys itself. And then there are URIs for keys for the Azure developer. And there's usage logging information that is provided to the security admin. Quite simple, isn't it? There are some terms I want you to be aware of and know about as it relates to Key Vault. So here are some key terms associated with the Key Vault you need to know about. Tenant. Well, tenant refers to the organization that owns and manages a specific instance of Microsoft Cloud Services. It's usually used to refer to a set of Azure and Microsoft Services credentials. Vault owner. Well, this is someone that has full access and full control over the vault and the keys. Consumer is the one that uses the keys provided by the owner. Vault consumer. HSM is the hardware security module. And there's a hardware security module is one of the methods of providing vault keys. Very secure method. So there is a HSM admin and an HSM officer or user. In addition, there is a HSM crypto service encryption user, which is a built-in role usually assigned to service accounts. Resource, well, is any resource that is managed through Azure, provided by Azure. So a virtual machine would be a resource. SQL Server would be a resource. An application would be a resource, and so on. Resource group is a logical grouping of resources that are managed together. You may choose to manage a group of VMs and applications together because they form a logical unit of work. You may choose a web server, a database server, an application server, a VM, all put together in a resource group. Security principle is an identity that essentially is a user, if you will. Think about it as a user identity that has a combination of authentication and access control lists, providing permissions to certain resources inside of an application or a resource. Azure Active Directory, or AAD. So this is the Active Directory service for each tenant. Each directory has or can have one or more domains, but they can only have one tenant. A directory itself can have many subscriptions, but only one tenant. Okay, so Azure Active Directory. Azure Tenant ID is a unique way to identify the Azure Active Directory instance within the Azure subscription. And finally, there are managed identities. Key Vault provides secure ways to gain access to stored credentials and keys. Your code needs to authenticate to Key Vault. How do you authenticate to Key Vault? Well, that's where managed identities comes into the picture. They automate the process of authenticating to Key Vault. So, tenant, vault owner, consumer, HSM admin, crypto officer, crypto user. There's also service encryption user, which I haven't listed. A resource or a resource group, security principal, Azure AD, Azure Tenant ID, and Managed Identities. Key terms. Use Key Vault to simplify the safeguarding of cryptographic keys.